Hi, and welcome to Learning Across Kansas. I'm your host, Cindy Couchman. Learning Across Kansas is a joint partnership between the Kansas State Department of Education and the Kansas Public Broadcasting Service. This partnership makes continuing education across our state possible while we experience social distancing. I am filming today in Mushroom Rock State Park. Mushroom Rock State Park is the smallest state park in Kansas, and you can tell probably where this park gets its name. This rock is made out of Dakota sandstone. It gets its shape, this mushroom shape, from extreme temperatures and erosion caused from wind, rain, high temperatures. These extreme temperatures and our 4 very distinct seasons in Kansas made settling this state really a challenge. To go over how our original settlers dealt with that challenge, we go to Kyle Heileman in DeSoto, Kansas.
Welcome. Weather has always presented many challenges in the history of the state of Kansas, and Kansans are amazing problem solvers. Let's face it, our state motto is ad astra per aspera, to the stars through difficulty, and we've always found ways to overcome those weather challenges. One of them was simple, using the wind from a windmill to turn this and run the pump and pump water up for animals and people. So we used the wind. And then we figured out if we dug deep into the ground and made root cellars, it was 35 to 40 degrees, cold enough year round, to keep your food from rotting. We also use those cellars as storm cellars for tornadoes and severe weather and thunderstorms. And then we figured out how to make ice houses, like this chunk of ice carved out of a lake or a stream in winter. And the research shows that a lot of the streams in the 1800s froze solid in Kansas. You take sawdust, dirt, cover the ice like this, and it literally will freeze into the ice. Bury it in the ground or in an ice house, and you will have a solid block of ice in the middle of July to use to cool your food, your house, or a room, or an ice box. Amazing. We even figured out how to use limestone. So we talked about this earlier in episode 1, that there's limestone all over Kansas, left over from a prehistoric ocean. This is actually the jaw of a mosasaur, a teenage dinosaur swimming in the ocean. This is the front section of his jaw. You would not want to swim with this bad boy. But this limestone, we have caves now cut in Lenexa that are so deep and so big, they are 65 to 70 degrees year round, and it is the largest office space on the planet Earth underground. 20 million square feet, or what I love to say, 42 Arrowhead stadiums would fit underground inside these caves. But then it comes to something absolutely amazing. If you look at the soil in Kansas, it's rich, thick, and dark. And the prairie grasses in western Kansas literally could grow 6 to 7 feet tall, but their root structure could be 10 to 14 feet deep. And so they had to break through that sod. Well, they used that sod cut into squares to build houses. And a fun experiment I encourage you to do, go out in your yard, pull up a plant or some grass with roots, get permission, put it in water, and look at how much dirt falls out of it. You'll see that the roots hold the dirt. So the sod bricks literally let them build houses that were insulated year-round and survived the weather extremes of Kansas. Now we're on to Miss Ballou to talk about a weather event that challenged our state like no other. Have a great day.
Wow, so today let's look at the impact of weather on people. Weather is the most dynamic element in our environment. When we look at it in terms of people, we in Kansas live on the tribal lands of the Kansa, or the people of the South Wind. And now I want to introduce you to one person whose life was changed dramatically by the weather. It's my grandmother, Winifred May Yeager Ballou. My grandmother was born in 1920 in Dodge City, Kansas. She was a young girl by the time the Great Depression was in full force. To add insult to injury, you have not only the Great Depression, but the Dust Bowl that's going to affect this whole part of the United States, bullseye, Southwest Kansas. So what was the impact on her? Well, her family moved from farm to farm and state to state. The economic and environmental pressures of the Dust Bowl were immense. I want to tell you the story of my grandmother in her own words. Here's an excerpt from her journal. My parents had a hard time even feeding us. It was the Depression time. Dad paid $1.25 an acre to plant his wheat and received 25 cents for his trouble. We moved into Hugoton, Kansas in an old motorhome minus its motor. There were 5 children by this time, and Dad drove his old pickup to Colorado and filled it with fruits and vegetables. He sold them on his way back. Mom canned the leftovers. 3 of us older kids slept on a sort of a porch covered with canvas. We finally left everything except bedding and groceries and went to Blackwell, Oklahoma to our father's mom and dad's farm. What are the stories in your family? I challenge you to make a journal also. All you need is some paper, a pen, scissors, and a jar. This is what I handed my grandmother. It was full of questions. I was curious about what she liked and what music, what she ate, where she went, what she did for fun, what my dad was like when he was younger. All the stories that you're curious about, write them down. You can do it by email, or better yet, you can do it by video conference. Take all those questions and set a time. Ask someone in your family all of the questions that you've always wanted to ask, and then record it, because you're not the only person who will find those stories interesting. History's so much more fun when we know people who have lived through it. So for now, I say have fun and stay curious.
Kansas school buildings may be closed for the remainder of the academic year, but school is still in session. Keeping students engaged in the learning process during this extraordinary time is critical for their ongoing success. We salute our teachers, parents, and guardians who are committed to ensuring their students finish this year strong. We're all ready for our lives to get back to normal, but until that time, Kansas students, keep learning and keep working toward your goals. Together, Kansans can.
We just learned about sod homes and how settlers used those sod homes to help protect them from the weather elements. I'm sitting in the Hagelin dugout home. It was built in the summer of 1868. A family lived here for 2 years. It measures only 12 foot by 6 foot and was covered by their covered wagon. I can only imagine how living in this dugout home was a great protection of possible tornadoes. Did you know in 2008, the state of Kansas set a record for 187 tornadoes in one day? To learn more about tornadoes and angular motion of tornadoes, we go to Stan Bergkamp in Mays.
Okay, hey, I'm at Mays High School and we're excited to be talking about tornadoes and pressure and math. And so I have my great niece Delaney here to help us understand all of this. So one of the things that happens with tornadoes is that you get a difference in pressure. So pressure is force per unit of area, okay? So like car tire pressure is measured in force or pounds per square inch. So Delaney, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna blow down on here. What do you think is gonna happen?
It's gonna fall.
Why?
Because there's gravity on the ground and it's pulling the ping pong ball down.
Okay, that seems reasonable. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna blow down, verify that I'm blowing down, right? But what did it actually do?
It spun really fast.
It spun really fast. So that's what happens in a tornado. You make air spin really, really fast and it creates a low pressure system. Now, when things spin, that creates what we call angular momentum. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you this. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go like this, spin top half of your body in one direction. Now, come back the other way. Okay, now, notice what happens. Top half of your body goes in one direction, the bottom half goes in the other, because momentum has to be conserved. Now, when things spin, this is what we call angular momentum, and that's represented by the letter L. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to start with your arms out, okay? And I'm going to spin you, then I want you to bring your arms in. Okay, you ready? So arms out, ready? Now bring them in. Now, woo! What happened when you brought him in?
I stopped and I fell.
Okay, but before, okay, let's try that again. Ready? Arms out. Okay, ready? Now bring him in. Woo! Okay, now notice what happened. She spun really, really fast when she brought those in. So this is an inverse relationship. So what happened first is that, hold this up. So she had a big moment of inertia, but this is the Greek letter omega, which means she spun really slow. Now, when she put her arms in, She decreased her moment of inertia, but she had to spin really, really fast because we always have to produce the same angular momentum. So this is an inverse relationship between moment of inertia and omega. As one gets bigger, the other one gets smaller. Okay, so Shannon, you tell us how animals respond to weather.
Hey, thanks, Stan. All weather influences populations of animals and plants, primarily because it's directly impactful on their habitat. Habitat's defined as an area in which organisms eat, look for shelter, actually even look for mates. The habitat is influential on what we call carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is defined as the maximum number of organisms the environment can support in a particular area. Let's take a look at an organism that's common to most of us, and that's the white-tailed deer. Take a look at this graph. Notice how the population increases until it hits the carrying capacity and then it levels out. Now think of an extreme weather event, a tornado, for example. It would wipe out a large amount of the habitat. And what would that do to the carrying capacity? Of course, it would bring it down and the environment could support fewer of the deer. Now let's go talk to someone whose job includes keeping track of the size of populations. This is Aaron Baugh, and he's a wildlife biologist with the Kansas Department of Wildlife, Parks, and Tourism. He tells us how they keep track of population sizes.
For our pheasant survey, for example, we're stopping every 2 miles on that 20-some mile transect there, and we'll listen. In that survey, we're actually listening for the crow count, or the crows of the male pheasants there.
So by their sound, you don't have to actually see them. By their sound, you can count how many.
Yeah, exactly. On that, this survey that we're doing right now will be the sound of.
Thanks, Aaron. Now let me leave you with a challenge. There's another way to track populations that's called mark and recapture. It's something you might even be able to do in your own environment in which you live. Take a look at it, and if you think you know how to set that up, ask your science teacher.
So we just learned about how weather really affects all kinds of patterns and behaviors of our animals that we see in Kansas. I know where we live, we get to enjoy the migration of geese every single year. So not only does weather affect animals, but now we're going to go to Heidi, Alvin, and Mays to learn how the weather can also affect our mood.
Weather is connected to your health. One of the reasons for this is that the vitamin D in your body needs to be converted to a form that your body can use, and this is accomplished when the sunlight hits your skin. Vitamin D is important for strong bones and other bodily functions. The sunlight hitting your skin also causes your skin to release nitric oxide, which is an important compound to lower your blood pressure. Lower blood pressure reduces the risk of heart disease. Remember to wear sunscreen and protective equipment to protect yourself from skin cancer if you are out in the sun for a long time. The weather actually has an effect on your mental and emotional health as well, not just your physical health. So much so that in fact there is something called seasonal affective disorder. Seasonal affective disorder is the tendency towards depression that some people have during the winter months when there's not as much sunlight and there's not as many opportunities to be outside. This is partly because being in the sunshine helps your body to release serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that helps you regulate your emotions, and it generally makes you feel good. Interestingly enough, there's a correlation between the release of serotonin and the working of melatonin, which is a molecule that helps you to sleep. So when you're outside more, you tend to get better sleep the night thereafter, and more sleep allows you to have a better mental and emotional health. Interaction with nature also reduces stress hormones, such as adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline and cortisol cause inflammation in your body, and they're what makes you feel just when you're stressed out. Interactions with nature reduces that, which helps you to have an overall better mental and emotional health. To get a better idea of how much being outside and movement can affect your mental and emotional health, try this. Go on a walk the next time you're frustrated. Just think about how you feel before you go on your walk, and then how you feel after you go on the walk. Another thing you can try is next time you're mad, make sure no one can see you because you're going to look really silly, but make yourself smile. The act of actually making the muscles in your face form a smile causes your body to release endorphins. You'll look silly, but you'll actually feel better afterwards. This is because of what is called the mind-body connection. The mind-body connection is how our brain interacts with our body, and our health mentally is actually very much linked to our health physically. And now to Kelly, who's going to give us another way to be outside.
One of my favorite outdoor activities is fishing. Whether it's taking my family to our favorite fishing pond, going to the lake with a group of friends, or even flying solo down to the next stream. Fishing is a great way to spend some time outdoors, and you never know, you might even catch your next meal. So when you're first ready to go out and go fishing, we need to check a couple things. First of all, we need a pole, some bait or a lure, and we probably better go ahead and check the weather forecast. Now you might ask, why would we check the weather forecast? Well, contrary to popular belief, a bright sunny day is not always the best time to go fishing. You see, whenever the pressure is high and it's warm out, fish tend to go lower levels in our ponds and our lakes or even our streams, and they're a little bit harder to catch. But as a storm comes rolling in and the clouds are coming over, our barometric pressure is going to drop. As this pressure drops, the fish will actually come to the top of the water and into our shallow areas so that they can start to feed. All throughout the storm, when the pressure's dropped, is a good time to go fishing. Now remember, this is Kansas weather and we want to stay safe. But there's not a fisherman who didn't let a little bit of rain keep him from catching his next big one. Now as the storm passes, the pressure will actually begin to rise again. As that pressure rises, our fish become listless, go towards those bottom layers, and it's a little bit harder to be able to catch a bite. 2 to 3 days after that storm, the pressure is going to stabilize out and we'll start to see our fish come back up to the top. Plenty of places in Kansas to go fishing. If we go to kansasoutdoors.com, the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks has many options for their fish program. Their fish program is very similar to walk-in hunting. It's private lands that have been leased for the public to be able to go and fish. The other thing that we can find at kansasoutdoors.com is an atlas that's going to tell us all of these locations. It's going to give us the options to be able to buy our fishing license, especially for the ages of 16 to 74, where we need those to be able to fish on public lands. And it's going to give us a fishing forecast. The forecast that tells us the best places to fish, the best times of the year, and maybe some records so that we have an idea of what we're looking for. Remember, the next time you head out to go fishing, check the weather, check the fishing forecast, make sure you can get to shelter on time before a big storm, and go out and enjoy one of Kansas's best outdoor activities, and maybe you'll get lucky for the next fishing frenzy.
Hey parents, you're doing great! With Kansas school buildings closed and homes being turned into classrooms, parents and caregivers have expanded their roles in their students' learning. This is a new experience for most of us, so let's show one another a little grace. When you and your students start to feel overwhelmed or stressed, take a break. It's really okay. Keeping students interested and engaged in learning is the key to success. Remember, you have an entire community of fellow caregivers and teachers to lean on. Reach out. Together, Kansans can.
Just out getting some vitamin D and some exercise. And now I know that it's probably lowering my blood pressure, it's gonna put me in a better mood, and I'm gonna even sleep better tonight. Even if you don't like exercise, and it isn't your cup of tea, now you know that every cloud has a silver lining. Those are idioms, and if you don't know what those are, Sam Neal and Bueller is gonna explain them. Sam, take it away.
Hey, so You might have thought as I was walking up here that I wasn't paying attention, and some people would call that having my head in the clouds. Well, that's what we call an idiom. And we're going to talk today about what idioms are and how they apply to weather, because weather is something that all of us can relate to. So, our first question to answer today is, what exactly is an idiom?
An idiom is a word or phrase used in different regions or cultures, which means something different from its dictionary definition.
The idiom, the calm before the storm, well, it makes a little bit of sense, because before a big storm rolls in, usually the atmosphere is very serene and peaceful, and the sky might be changing colors, and then wham! Here comes the rain and the thunder and the hail and the lightning. That storm is hit. So that's how we literally look at that phrase. But figuratively that phrase means simply that it's peaceful before all the chaos begins. Another idiom is a cold day in July. It'll be a cold day in July when I finally get through all of the laundry. Does that have anything to do with the weather? Because it's really not cold out right now, and so I really don't need a blanket. What it really means is that it's very rarely cold in July, so something probably isn't going to happen. What about the phrase, make hay when it's sunny? Well, some idioms require you to have a background knowledge. If you're not somebody who has ever baled hay before, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to you. But what we know is this: when you bale hay, the conditions need to be dry, because moisture can ruin a bale of hay. So when you hear the phrase make hay when it's sunny, what it's really meaning is make the most of an opportunity that's presented to you. Another popular idiom is that it's raining cats and dogs. But are our four-legged friends really falling from the sky? So when we hear the phrase raining cats and dogs, it doesn't mean that our four-legged friends are in the air. What it means is it's gonna rain and you're about to get drenched. Idioms are used in everyday life, and they're sometimes hard to understand. So if you hear one and you don't know what it means, look it up. Because idioms are not meant to be taken literally. They're a very figurative part of speech. And now we're gonna send it to Topeka, to Cheryl de la Cruz.
Thank you, Sam. There are several weather elements, and they include wind, humidity, temperature, and pressure. And yes, we are all under pressure. I mean literally though, I'm talking about atmospheric pressure. It is the force of air above a certain area on Earth's surface. Although the atmosphere exerts a significant amount of pressure on everything, the only time we are aware of atmospheric pressure is when it changes. As you go up and up and up the sky on a plane, or climb up a mountain, pressure decreases. In the lower stratosphere, the temperature is constant and the pressure decreases exponentially. The metric units curve fits the model P equals 22.65 times E to the quantity of 1.73 minus 0.000157 H. If we want to find the height of a mountain with an atmospheric pressure of 44 kilopascals, we simply substitute 44 for P in the equation like this. Solving for H, we take the natural log of both sides and we get this. Then we continue to manipulate the equation and we get a height of approximately 6,790 meters. Wow, the joy of solving exponential equations.
We're going to conduct an experiment showing the power of air pressure. What you're going to need is an aluminum can filled up with about a centimeter of water, a stove or a hot plate, a pair of tongs for safety, and a bowl filled with water and ice. Throw it down on that hot plate and light the fire underneath. Make sure to exercise extreme caution around the fire, as touching it could burn you or burn anyone else around you that the water could possibly spill on. Simply wait for the water inside to start to boil. You'll notice that when water vapor starts to come out from the opening up top, and you'll notice it from the slight sizzle that the sound makes when the water starts to boil over. Turn off your stove or hot plate and use the tongs to pick up the can. With the tongs, move the can over the bowl of water and ice and quickly and carefully immerse the can into the bowl. Now, what do you predict will happen? When the boiling water was immediately cooled down, the air pressure inside the can changed, contracting the can inwards.
Amazing! I challenge you to try the experiment at home, but be extra careful. Isn't it so cool to be able to explain phenomena using math and science? Remember, smart is a new cool.
Thank you for joining us and learning about weather in Kansas. This has been a joint partnership between the Kansas State Department of Education and the Kansas Public Broadcasting Service. For Learning Across Kansas, I'm your host, Cindy Couchman.